There's a certain kind of cold that has nothing to do with the weather. It's the cold of isolation, the cold of being small and scared and alone in a world that feels too big and too sharp. This is the cold that one-year-old Leo had been living in for 67 days. 67 days since his mother's stroke. 67 days since their world, once warm, had fallen silent. And then, there is another kind of cold. The cold of wet leather, of wind-chapped skin, of steel resting after a hard 100 miles. This was our cold. The Redeemer's MC. We were just passing through. A pack of steel ghosts on a highway that led to somewhere else. The plan was simple. Fuel the bikes, grab some bitter coffee, and chase the dawn. The world of silent, scared little boys was not on our agenda. I'm Bear, president of the Redeemers. And on this night, I was tired. The rain had soaked through the seams of my gear, and the rumble of my engine was the only conversation I was interested in. We'd been on the road for 3 days, escorting a fallen brother's family home. Our tempers were worn thin, and our patience was gone. The gas station light flickered, buzzing like an angry hornet. I was running the checklist in my head. Reaper on point, axe on drag, tanks full. And that's when I saw him. A flicker, a flash of movement so small and fast I thought he was a stray dog. He burst from the convenience store's automatic doors, a tiny, frantic shape against the light. He wasn't a dog. He was a boy, a child, maybe 11, 12 years old. And he was running at us, running with a kind of desperate, final fuse burning energy that makes the hair on your neck stand up. He wasn't running from something. He was running to something. To us. The club went, silent. Engines idled. But the men themselves, they froze. We're not used to being approached. We're used to people giving us a wide berth, crossing the street, looking at their shoes. We are the men that mothers warn their children about. And here was a child, breaking every rule, charging straight into the lion's den. He stood there, shaking, not from the cold. This was a different kind of tremor, a deep, bone-rattling fear that had finally, violently, broken the surface. He looked up at me, and I could see the reflection of my own intimidating bulk in his taped-up glasses. For a second, his courage faltered. He saw the vests, the tattoos, the skulls. He saw exactly what we wanted the world to see. Monsters. I lifted my visor. I wanted him to see my eyes. I didn't smile. I didn't offer a kind word. I just waited. The air crackled. It was his move. He didn't beg. He didn't whine. His voice, when it finally came, was a raw, broken thing. But it wasn't a plea. It was a demand. You're the Redeemers, right? He gasped, the words tumbling out. My neighbor. He said you help people. He said you deliver justice. My hand, the one resting on the throttle, tightened. Justice. That was a heavy word. A word that usually meant blood and bad news. My uncle. He's taking my mom. Right now, the boy's voice cracked, the dam of his control breaking. He's putting her in a van, a white van. He says I can't see her anymore. He's lying. Please. I tried. I can't protect her alone. I need muscle. I need the Redeemers. Silence. A heavy, weighted silence settled over the gas station. My club, the Redeemers. We're not a committee. We don't vote. We don't debate. We act. And right now, all of us were waiting on one thing. My internal verdict. I looked at the boy. Then I looked at the crumpled paper he was still holding out, his small fist shaking so hard it blurred. I took the paper. It was damp, already starting to fall apart. I unfolded it. Even in the dim light, it was a joke. It was a forged emergency health order. The letterhead was from a printer. The signature was in a different color ink. It was the kind of thing a high schooler would fake to get out of gym class. But it was also the kind of thing that a slick, manipulative man would use on a non-verbal woman and a scared child. "My mom," Leo choked out, reading my expression. "She had a stroke. She can't talk or walk. I take care of her." He said it with a defiant pride. "I'm the man of the house." I looked at his shoes. They were held together with duct tape. His hoodie, 2 sizes too big, was clean but worn thin at the elbows. This kid wasn't just the man of the house. He was the soldier, the nurse, and the protector. He was holding a crumbling kingdom of 2 together with nothing but tape and sheer will. And the barbarians were at the gate. My Uncle Rick. Leo spat the name like it was poison. He has power of attorney. He said she's a burden. He's been selling our stuff, her medicine, her rings. Now he wants the house. The boy's eyes, for the first time, turned from fear to a cold, adult-like rage. He's not taking her to a hospital. It's a facility. A bad place. He said he'd be back tonight with a transport. And I had to pack. He's there now. He's separating us. That was the key. Separating us. This wasn't about money. This wasn't about a house. This was about a predator. A wolf in the family. Trying to tear the last 2 members of a pack apart. This Uncle Rick. He hadn't just broken a law. He had violated a code. A code these men, my brothers, understood better than any other. I didn't have to say a word. I just looked at Reaper. He's my road captain. He's seen me angry. He's seen me calm. But what he saw in my eyes that night was something different. It was a cold, clear, calculating certainty. Reaper just nodded. A single, sharp dip of his chin. It was a promise. It was a verdict. It was an order that every man there understood. We kill our engines for 2 reasons: to mourn or to fight. Tonight, it felt like we were about to do both. I got off my bike. I knelt down in the wet, my knee protesting on the cold asphalt. I put one heavy, leather-clad hand on Leo's trembling shoulder. The kid flinched, but didn't pull away. I made sure he could see my eyes. I made sure he understood that the time for fear was over. The time for help was here. "Leo," I said. My voice was low. A rumble, like gravel in a deep pit. "You did good. You did the right thing. You protected your mom." I gave his shoulder a firm squeeze. "You don't have to be the only man of the house tonight. You've got an army now. Here's what happens next," I said. Not asking, but telling. "You're going to get on the back of my bike. You're going to hold on tight. And you are going to show us the way to your house." I turned to my brothers. They knew. The stop for coffee was over. The plan to chase the dawn was canceled. A new ride had just begun. This wasn't a club matter. This was a family matter. "Leo," I said, my voice now loud enough for all to hear. A clear command cutting through the rain. "What's your mother's name?" "Sarah." He stuttered. "Then let's go get Sarah." The boy didn't hesitate. He scrambled onto the back of my bike, his small arms wrapping around my vest, clinging to the patch. I looked back at my club. "Reaper," I yelled. "Kill the lights. We're going in quiet. We rolled out of that gas station, not as a line, but as a phalanx. A dark wave of steel and leather and purpose. The rain was still falling, but the cold was gone. All I could feel was the small, trembling heart of the boy on my back, and the righteous, burning fire of the hunt ahead. Uncle Rick was about to learn a very hard lesson. You don't mess with a lion's cub, not when the rest of the pride is watching. The Redeemers are riding, a pack of 12, with a new, 1-year-old navigator, are on their way to stop a man who thinks he can prey on the weak. The confrontation is coming, and it's going to be brutal. Before we see what happens when the Redeemers arrive at Leo's house, I want to hear from you. We call ourselves the Gentle Bikers, and we know our family is global. Let us know in the comments where you are watching from right now, and if you believe that family is who shows up, and that heroes sometimes wear leather. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Join the family. We're glad you're here. The ride from the gas station was short, maybe 5 blocks, but it felt like a lifetime. The boy on my back, Leo, was a compass needle, shivering but true. He pointed down a dark, narrow street, and I felt his small, gloved hand tap my shoulder. "There," he whispered, his voice barely audible over my engine's idle. I gave the signal. Kill engines. We were a dozen shadows, rolling in on momentum and gravity alone. This wasn't a warning. This wasn't a parade. This was an ambush. Predators don't announce their arrival. They simply appear. We moved like a silent, black tide, filling the street, our dark painted bikes swallowing the faint light. And there it was, just as the boy said. A small, sad-looking house. Its lights off, but in the driveway, parked with arrogant finality, was the white van. It was sterile, windowless, and screamed facility. The side door was open. A dark, gaping mouth. On the porch, under the dim yellow light, stood 2 men. They weren't EMTs. They were bouncers, hired muscle in cheap scrubs. We didn't park. We deployed. The men dismounted in one fluid motion. No commands were given. None were needed. Reaper and Axe took the flanks, sealing the driveway. Hammer and the others fanned out, creating a wall of leather and muscle that locked the house, the van, and the street down. We were a trap, and the teeth were about to close. I lifted Leo off my bike and set him on the sidewalk behind me. I placed my heavy hand on his head. "Stay here," I rumbled. "Stay behind the line. We handle the rest." His eyes were huge, fixed on the front door. Then, the wolf emerged from the den. Uncle Rick. He was exactly what I pictured. A cheap suit in the rain, a Bluetooth earpiece in his ear, and the face of a man who'd climb a mountain of bodies to get a better view. He was holding a clipboard like it was a scepter, jabbing it at the 2 orderlies. "I don't care what she's wearing," he was shouting, his voice a slimy, impatient whine. "Just grab her. We have a schedule." My blood, which had been simmering, went ice cold. Grab her. Not help her. Not assist her. Grab her. The casual cruelty of it. It settled everything. There was no misunderstanding. This wasn't a rescue. This was a kidnapping. They hadn't seen us. They were too busy with their crime to notice the dozen executioners standing in their driveway. I took a step, then another. The sound of my boot heel on the pavement was the only sound. It was sharp, deliberate, loud. "Hey," the uncle shouted, his voice laced with annoyance. "This is private property. Who the hell are you? You lost?" I kept walking. Slow, measured. right into the center of the driveway, until the yellow porch light hit my vest. I could see the moment his brain processed the patch. The Redeemer's MC. His smugness didn't vanish. It just froze. I didn't say anything. I just stood there. I let the silence, and the rain, and the sheer, unspoken threat of 12 massive men in cuts do the work. I let him see the tattoos. I let him see the patches. I let him see the faces of men who feared nothing he could ever comprehend. The 2 orderlies saw us, and their bravado evaporated. They were hired muscle, but they were paid by the hour, and this was not in the job description. They took a half step back, suddenly very interested in the peeling paint on the porch. I said, "This is private property." Uncle Rick tried again, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. He held up the clipboard, the forged paper. "I have a health order, an emergency order. This woman is a ward of the state. I'm her legal. I'm in charge here." I let him finish. I let him hang himself with his own lies. Then, slowly, I reached into my vest and pulled out the crumpled, soaked paper Leo had given me. I held it up. "This one?" I asked. My voice was quiet, but it carried. It was a cold, flat rumble. The color drained from Uncle Rick's face. The recognition, the confusion, the dawning, sickening horror of how could this boy have summoned this? "You," I said, taking another step. "You are Uncle Rick." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. "You are the man who tries to sell his own sister." Another step. "You're the man who tries to steal a child's mother." Another step. "You're the man who uses a forged piece of paper to throw them into a cage so you can sell their home." I was at the foot of the steps. The 2 orderlies had backed up so far they were practically trying to melt into the siding of the house. They had their hands up, palms out. "Hey man," one of them said, his voice squeaking. We're just contracted. We don't know this guy." I ignored them. My focus was total. It was on the wolf. "The boy," I said, my voice dropping even lower. He had a question. He asked for muscle. He asked for justice. "Now, listen here," Rick blustered, finding a last, pathetic spark of defiance. "I am in charge. I have the power of attorney. You tattooed thugs. You have no right. I'm calling the police." He fumbled for his phone. A tiny, brave little shield. But as he looked down, Reaper and Axe moved. They stepped up on my left and right. They didn't have to be told. It was instinct. We were a solid wall. 3 men, representing a dozen, standing as one. We didn't draw weapons. We didn't raise our voices. We were the weapon. Rick looked up from his phone. He saw us. He saw the cold, unblinking stares. He saw the skull tattoos. He saw the patches that said we belonged to something bigger, stronger, and more permanent than his greed. His hand, holding the phone, began to shake. "You are," I said, "in violation of a code. And you are trespassing on a Redeemer's protectee." I pointed a gloved finger, not at him, but at the van. "Your transportation is leaving." "What?" he stammered. "Reaper," I said. Reaper didn't even look at Rick. He walked right past him, up the steps, and stood in front of the 2 orderlies. He was half a foot taller than both of them, and twice as wide. He just tilted his head toward the van. "We're good," the first orderly said, pushing off the wall. "We're gone. This is—" "I'm not paying you," Rick shrieked. The second orderly just laughed, a short, barking sound. "You can't pay us enough, pal." They practically fell over each other, getting off the porch. They scrambled into the cab of the van. The engine roared to life, and with a squeal of tires on the wet street, they were gone, leaving Uncle Rick alone. Utterly, completely alone. The van's taillights vanished, and there he was, a king with no kingdom, a general with no army, just a slick, pathetic man with a bad suit and a useless piece of paper. He looked at me. He looked at Reaper. He looked at Axe. He looked at the line of silent, watching men, and for the first time, he looked truly, deeply afraid. I stepped onto the porch. I took the clipboard from his hand. He didn't resist. He was a balloon, and I had just pulled the plug. I looked at his forged order. I tore it in half. Then I tore it in quarters. I let the wet pieces of his authority flutter to the ground. "Your power of attorney is revoked," I said. "By us." I didn't wait for an answer. I was done with him. The threat was neutralized. The real mission was inside. I brushed past him, my shoulder checking him, not as a strike, but as an arm. Inconvenience. A thing to be moved. I walked to the open front door. A small hand grabbed my vest. It was Leo. He had run from his spot, now that the danger was gone. "Mom," he whispered, pointing into the dark living room. She's scared." "I know." "Son," I said, putting my hand over his. "The monsters are gone. Let's go see your mother." I stepped into the house, and the anger I felt outside, it found a new, darker level. This wasn't a home. It was a tomb, half looted. The air was stale, cold. Uncle Rick hadn't just been planning to move them. He had been systematically dismantling their lives. Boxes were everywhere, labeled with a callous disregard. Junk. Donate. He was throwing a life away, piece by piece. I saw a bare mattress on the floor in one room. I saw a refrigerator with a legal notice taped to it. This was a violation. This was a man trying to erase a family. Outside, I heard Reaper's voice, low and final. "You're gonna wait for the police," he told Rick. "You're gonna sit on that curb, in the rain, and you're gonna wait. And we're gonna wait with you." I knew I didn't have to worry about Rick. He was a statue now, guarded by gargoyles. My concern was for the living. Leo led me to the last door. I stepped into the room, and my breath just stopped. There she was. Sarah, Leo's mom. She was in a hospital bed, in this tiny, dark room. She was frail, so frail, a bird with broken wings. And when she saw me, this giant, dripping rainwater and road grime, with the skull tattoos and the leather. Her eyes filled with an absolute, profound terror. She thought I was with him. She thought I was the one who had finally come to take her. She made a sound, a small, choked gasp in the back of her throat. It was the only sound she could make, and it broke my heart. I froze. I didn't dare take another step. I was the monster in her nightmare. So, I had to stop being one. Slowly, so slowly. I pulled off my wet gloves. I unzipped my vest, the Redeemer's cut that was my armor, my flag. I slid it off my shoulders and folded it, hiding the patch, hiding the club. I was just a man now. A big, tattooed man, but the uniform was gone. And then, I did the only thing I could. I knelt, right there in the doorway, on the dirty carpet. I lowered the mountain. I made myself small. I put my hands, my bare, tattooed hands, on my knees, palms up, a sign of peace. Leo, bless his heart, he understood. He ran past me, a tiny ambassador. He scrambled to his mother's bedside and grabbed her thin hand. "Mom," he said, his voice bright and victorious. "It's okay. He's not with Uncle Rick. He's ours. He's a redeemer. He's one of the good ones. He made the bad men go away." Her eyes, so full of fear, flickered from her son to me. She saw this giant, this monster, kneeling. She heard the rumble of our bikes. Not leaving, but staying. She saw axe and hammer, standing on her porch, facing out, like sentinels, guarding her home, and the terror in her eyes. It didn't just fade. It broke. It was replaced by a wave of something so powerful. A wave of relief so profound, a single tear escaped and traced a line down her temple. I nodded to her, a slow, respectful bow of my head. "Ma'am," I said, my voice as soft as I could make it. "My name is Bear. Your son. He's a hero. He came and found us. You're safe now. No one is taking you anywhere. No one is ever going to separate you." She closed her eyes for a moment, just absorbed the safety. Then, her other hand, the one Leo wasn't holding, lifted, just an inch, an invitation. I stood up, slowly, and walked to her bedside. I gently, so gently, took her hand in mine, my massive, calloused, scarred hand. Holding hers, which felt as delicate as a dried leaf, I gave it a gentle squeeze. A promise, sealed. The flashing lights arrived minutes later, red and blue painting the wet street. But for the first time, they weren't for us. Reaper was already handling it. He was talking to the sergeant, calm and respectful. He had the real paperwork the power of attorney Leo didn't even know he had. A copy of the deed, all of it. Our club. We have a lawyer. A very, very good one. And he was already on the phone with the police, explaining undue influence and elder abuse. Uncle Rick's power of attorney was based on lies. His emergency order was a forgery. And his list of crimes, thanks to a few quick calls, was suddenly very, very long. We watched them put him in the back of the cruiser. The cuffs were on. His cheap suit was soaked. He wasn't a wolf. He was just a wet rat. And as the car pulled away, I felt Leo's hand slip into mine. The resolution isn't just about removing the threat. It's about restoring the world. The police left, but we stayed for the rest of the night. Hammer, our sergeant at arms, a man who looks like he eats rocks for breakfast. He went into the kitchen. He found bread. He found peanut butter. And started making sandwiches. He made a stack for Leo and for the whole club. The other men, they started unpacking. They took those boxes marked junk and started putting things back. A picture frame. A porcelain doll. a heavy, warm quilt, which they gently spread over Sarah's bed. We were not a moving crew. We were a restoration crew. We stayed until dawn. The rain stopped, and the first, clean light of a new day broke over the horizon. I was on the porch, drinking the worst instant coffee I've ever had, from a mug that said, "World's Best Mom." And Leo. He was sitting next to me. He was wrapped in a club blanket, eating a sandwich, his feet not touching the ground. He was quiet. Not scared quiet, but peace quiet. He was safe. His mother was safe. Their home was safe. The Redeemer's MC had drawn a line, and the world had been forced to retreat. "Bear?" he asked, his voice muffled by the bread. "Yeah. Kid? Are you really?" "Angels?" I looked at my patch. "The phoenix rising from the ashes." I looked at my brothers, some asleep on their bikes, some standing guard. "No, Leo," I said, taking a sip of the bad coffee. "We're not angels. We're just men. But we're the men who show up. And in this world, that's often more than enough." We left as the city was waking up. The sounds of our engines were a promise, a reassurance. We didn't roll out with thunder. We left with the low, steady heartbeat of a sleeping giant. We had done what we came to do. The line had been drawn. The family was secure. Our lawyer was already filing restraining orders and starting the process to give Leo's mom full, permanent protection from her brother. The house was no longer a target. It was a fortress. I was the last to mount up. I did my final check. The house, the street, the horizon. It was clean. It was safe. I looked at the porch, and Leo was standing there. The kid from the gas station. He was gone. This was a different boy. The shake was gone from his hands. The desperation was gone from his eyes. He wasn't the man of the house because he had to be. He was the man of the house because he chose to be. He had faced the wolf, and he had found a pride. He didn't say thank you, and he didn't need to. This wasn't a transaction. It wasn't a favor. It was a responsibility. I looked at him, and he looked at me. And in that silent gaze, everything was understood. I gave him the nod, the one we give to brothers, the one that says, "I see you. I respect you. Your fight is my fight." And he nodded back. This one-year-old kid. He nodded back. As I rolled out, joining the pack, I thought about the word he'd used at the gas station. Justice. It's a complicated word. To some, it's about courts and laws and paperwork. And that's all true. Our lawyer was handling that. But sometimes, justice. It's just about showing up. It's about being the wall that the darkness breaks against. It's about standing in the gap when no one else will. We, the Redeemers, we live in a world of gray. We are not saints. We are not, as Leo asked, angels. We are just men. Flawed, scarred, and loud. We are the men society often looks away from, the ones they cross the street to avoid. They see the leather, the tattoos, the skulls, and they see monsters. But they don't see the code. They don't see what's under the vest. They don't see the fierce, unshakable loyalty. They don't see the men who will ride 500 miles in the rain to protect a brother's widow. They don't see the gentle giants who will stop a whole convoy on a dime for one small boy with taped-up glasses. The world is full of predators like Uncle Rick. Men who see vulnerability as an opportunity, who see kindness as weakness. They prey on the silent, the sick, and the small, because they believe no one is watching. They believe no one will fight back. They are wrong. We are watching, and we will always fight back. Because family isn't just the blood you share. Family is who shows up. It's who stands beside you when your legs are shaking. It's who lends you their strength when yours is gone. It's who kneels in your doorway and tells the monsters to go to hell. Leo and his mother, Sarah, they're family now. They are under the protection of the Redeemer's MC. Their fight is over. And ours. Well, our ride continues. Thank you for riding with us. Remember this story. Remember Leo. And remember the code. Because heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear leather. Until the next ride. Stay safe. And look out for each other.